It's one of life's strange twists that Brian Wilson, often seen as the most fragile of the Wilson brothers, would be the one to endure the longest. The quiet, tormented genius, the one who many thought wouldn't last, turned out to be the final voice among them still singing. While Dennis embodied the golden California dream, sun-kissed and invincible, it was Brian, the one burdened by so much internally, who outlasted them all. From the very first time I performed with him back in 1999, you could sense that he wasn't built like the rest of us. Not just in terms of vulnerability, but in resilience. Back then, some said he might not even finish a single song on stage. But he didn't just survive the show, he made it soar. Over the years, we watched him stare down old ghosts, revisit the long-abandoned smile sessions, and bring that long-lost masterpiece back into the light. Against all odds, Brian always found a way. That said, the road was rarely smooth. Some of the most memorable Brian moments weren't polished or perfect. They were raw, unpredictable, human. When the world expected him to be outgoing or graceful, he'd often respond in ways that were hilariously offbeat or strikingly honest. He didn't put on airs. If he wasn't in the mood for small talk backstage, he'd gently deflect, maybe with a line like, "Enjoy the catering." It wasn't rudeness. It was just Brian being Brian. One time, after a show, Eric Clapton came over full of praise. Brian simply smiled, said, "Rock and roll is here to stay. It will never die," and walked away. Just like that. Eric and I looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. It was strange, yes. But it was also perfect. Lately, our band has been preparing to perform some tracks from The Beach Boys' Love You, one of the most underrated albums in their catalog. To me, it's one of Brian's most honest works, written and performed during a time when his voice had aged and his life had shifted. And yet, those songs still cut deep. They were simple, strange, beautiful. Tracks like Johnny Carson or Solar System might seem quirky, but beneath them was real heart, real pain, real love. Brian was the engine behind almost everything on that record. With new synthesizers and gear, he could lay down whole arrangements by himself, quick, unfiltered, and from the gut. That's how he liked to work. Fast, intuitive, driven by emotion. It wasn't about perfection, it was about feeling. Just like on Pet Sounds, once he had the framework, he'd bring the others in and build the magic from there. In the past year, a few of us kept visiting Brian, just to sing with him, to be near him, to keep the music alive. Sometimes he'd hum along. Other times he'd just close his eyes and listen. I think, in those moments, we were giving something back. Not just for the career, not just for the opportunities, but for the impact he had on who we became as people. I still remember being a kid, teased and pushed around for loving Beach Boys records instead of the louder, heavier bands that were cool at the time. But I never stopped listening. That music gave me strength. And years later, it gave me a life, a career filled with moments most musicians only dream of. Historic venues, musical heroes, royal audiences. How do you express gratitude for that? Sometimes, a smile and a song are enough. Brian passed peacefully, in his own bed, in his own home, just as he deserved. And while his absence is heavy, there's comfort in knowing that his suffering is over. And perhaps it was through that very struggle, his search for peace, for love, for clarity, that we were given music so powerful it changed us. Music that still speaks to the broken, the hopeful, the dreamers. Brian Wilson didn't just write songs. He gave us parts of his soul, and for that, we are endlessly grateful. And now, as we quietly turn the final page of Brian Wilson's remarkable story, we're left with more than just the legacy of a music legend. We're left with a profound sense of gratitude for a man who gave the world pieces of his heart, wrapped in melody. His passing may mark the end of a physical presence, but the truth is, Brian never really belonged to just this world. He lived between notes, between dreams, between the crashing waves of California and the unseen storms of his mind. What he gave us was far more than entertainment. He gave us sanctuary. Through the warmth of his harmonies and the aching honesty of his lyrics, Brian offered something that was at once simple and transcendent: permission to feel, to hope, to hurt, and to heal. His music didn't just soundtrack our summers. It softened our winters. It lifted the broken-hearted, calmed the anxious, and inspired countless souls to look inward and upward. From the innocence of Surfer Girl to the sacred complexities of Pet Sounds, to the redemptive beauty of Smile, Brian's fingerprints are on every chord that's ever brought a tear to the eye or a swell to the chest. And though he often struggled to find peace within himself, he somehow managed to bring peace to others. Perhaps that was his quiet superpower, the ability to transform chaos into harmony, to turn personal anguish into universal comfort. In his final years, when the spotlight had dimmed and the applause had quieted, what remained was the essence of a man still chasing beauty, not for glory, but because it was how he communicated with the world. And in those private, tender moments, when friends would sit beside him and sing, when he would simply listen with eyes closed and a soft smile, we saw the most authentic version of him, not as a star, but as a soul who had spent a lifetime trying to translate his feelings into sound. So now, as we let him go, we don't say goodbye in silence. We say it with the music still playing, the harmonies still soaring, and the memories still blooming like wildflowers along the coastline of our hearts. Brian Wilson may have left this world quietly, but the waves of his influence will crash forever. In every child who sits at a piano and wonders what if, in every band that dares to blend vulnerability with brilliance, in every human being who has ever closed their eyes and found comfort in a song, there he will be. Not just remembered, but felt, always. Brian Wilson didn't just shape a sound, he shaped what it means to be human. Fragile, flawed, and still somehow full of wonder.